Wait a minute, that's not right. 1 week from Bad Blood, the blood is boiling between besties as Bayley takes on Naomi, and KO and Orton want Cody Rhodes to explain himself. Plus, Andrade and Hayes go for round 6. Okay, and the news indeed, it was SmackDown from Oklahoma City, and we had a #1 contenders match between two friends, Bayley and Naomi, in the first match, so let's start there. And it was a strange one to start with both friends not really wanting to attack each other and instead going for a couple pinning combinations. And then Bayley held herself back from punching Naomi in the face. So Naomi didn't want to have a fight like that, so she pushed Bayley several times. That fired Bayley up enough, and we finally got going. And even then, it was Naomi with most of the big moves, hitting a corkscrew plancha onto the floor, as well as a rear view, a double-legged head slam, and a blockbuster. But somehow, this was still not enough because Bayley had enough moxie in her as well to keep things fairly even, and then eventually she hit a Bayley to belly and followed it up with an elbow drop from the top rope to get the win and become the #1 contender, and she will face Nia Jax at Bad Blood. So for Bayley, she goes to 7-2-1 in one-on-one action. But for Naomi, she falls back below 500 at 4-5-2. But afterwards, the two friends were able to get back on the same page and they hugged it out backstage. In our second match, we had the 6th match in a very long series between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, with Andrade leading the series 3-2. Carmelo Hayes came out with his best offense to date because, as they always say, the 4th win is always the hardest one to get. So Andrade had a really nice move to start the match with a power slam onto the apron while he was caught between the ropes. Very impressive. Later on, he hit most of his regular moves with a Meteora, that standing moonsault after a regular moonsault misses, and the big back elbow. But as I said, this one was about Carmelo Hayes as he hit a first 48, then somehow hit a swinging face buster followed by a swinging neck breaker combo and an impressive cutter off of the top rope. But while Hayes was outside the ring, LA Knight came out because Hayes blindsided Knight backstage while he was talking to Andrade before the match. So as Knight made his way to the ring, Hayes rolled back into the ring, allowing Andrade to boot him right in the face. But Andrade's momentum took him right to Knight, where he was able to stop himself, but the two had words for each other momentarily, which gave Hayes just enough time to push Andrade into Knight and then roll him up from behind to get the win and tie the series at 3 apiece. Well, we may just have something here for Carmelo Hayes because he's now improved his record to 4-7. But for Andrade, maybe this series is not so good for him as he's fallen 5 out of the last 6 times to drop to 7-5. In our third match, we had Michin take on Piper Niven for the second time in a couple of weeks. And for some reason, Chelsea decided she wanted an early start to that dumpster match, bringing out a trash can that was apparently filled with some really rancid garbage. But at the same time, at least Michin and Piper both brought out some of their biggest moves, with Michin early on hitting that springboard tornado DDT and later reversing a Samoan drop into a crucifix driver. But she may have cost herself the match because she couldn't quite get Piper's second shoulder down, so the ref couldn't count for a while, and Piper was able to then kick out at 2. But Piper had some big moves of her own as she hit a cannonball off of the apron, off of a distraction by Chelsea, and then later reversed an eat defeat into a Michinoku driver. But of course, Chelsea, per usual, distracted the referee, and during that moment, Piper went outside the ring and went for another cannonball into the barricade, but instead Michin rolled away and Piper crashed into that trash can. So Michin ran right back into the ring, hit a big boot on Chelsea, and as Piper was getting back in the ring, made Piper eat defeat. So Michin goes to 3-8 in one-on-one action, winning her second straight match over Piper. But Piper can't seem to get a win even when Chelsea's helping her out, as she goes to 0-5 in all one-on-one matches. And in our main event, we had Kevin Owens and Randy Orton team up yet again against the Bloodlines, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Well, the show actually kicked off with Randy Orton wanting an explanation from Cody Rhodes onto why he would team with Roman Reigns. And seriously, aren't we all thinking that? What a crazy idea that was. Man, this guy has a lot of strange ideas. But nonetheless, Rhodes did come out and he said he would rather play the fool than be a coward. And he also said the bloodline needs to be finished. So Kevin Owens also came out wanting an explanation as well, but this time the bloodline interrupted him before he could say a single word, and Sikoa said that KO and Orton would not be any good for Rhodes in trying to stop them. So KO took offense and challenged both Sikoa and Fatu against he and Randy Orton in the main event. But later on in the show, Rhodes came up to KO while he was talking to Orton in the locker room preparing for the match, but KO said he didn't want to talk now, but they would talk later. KO also asked Rhodes to stay in the back for the match. But after KO walked away, Orton then told Rhodes that he would very much appreciate it if Rhodes came out for help should Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa make their way to the ring. So that takes us to the match with Randy Orton landing that patented side slam on Jacob Fatu onto the announce table. But Fatu got up immediately, so Orton just said, okay, that's enough, and he did it 3 more times when Sikoa then decided to come up from behind him. So Orton took care of him too with a side slam of his own onto the announce table. Much later in the match, Orton was able to hit that power slam on both of his opponents and then the draping DDT on Sikoa, so he coiled up ready to go for the RKO, but Fatu was on the apron and distracted him, so when he turned around, Orton got Samoan dropped by Sikoa. But eventually, Orton was able to tag in KO, and KO, with his new favorite move of not even going in the ring and just running around the outside, he was able to clothesline both of his opponents and also senton both of them. So he got Sikoa back into the ring and hit a swanton bomb, but as he went for a stunner to end the match, both Tonga and Loa came out down the ramp, and in this distraction, KO turned back around only to get hit with a spinning solo. From there, Cody Rhodes made good on his promise to Orton and attacked both Tonga and Loa, but eventually being beaten down by Fatu. But inside the ring, Orton hit an RKO on Tonga, and then KO followed it up with a stunner on Sikoa. But before KO could even go for the pin, Jacob Fatu threw Rhodes into the referee's feet, causing him to fall over and stopping the count from ever starting. Fatu then made his way into the ring and super kicked Owens 2 times, and Sikoa fell on top of him, and the ref recovered to count the 3 and give the Bloodline the win in their first match in this specific duo, and I guess more of just a warm-up for their match against Reigns and Rhodes at Bad Blood. For KO and Orton, well, the beat-up buddies are beaten up yet again by the Bloodline. And unfortunately, they are unable to follow up their win from a couple of weeks ago, so they fall to 2-3 in traditional tags. And beyond the mat for SmackDown, well, I guess it won't be KO and Owens getting the next tag team title opportunity after that loss, because shockingly, it was announced that there will be a triple threat ladder match for the WWE Tag Team Championship next week between the Bloodlines, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, versus DIY and the Street Profits. Backstage, Nia told Tiffy that she didn't understand what happened last week, so she asked her to explain it while choking her, and not in a fun kind of kinky way, but in a really mean way. and she said if something bad happened to her, something bad would also happen to Tiffy. But Tiffy still put in the work for Nia. After Bayley and Naomi hugged it out, Tiffy came up to Naomi making fun of her for losing to Bayley, but Naomi said that she would talk to Aldis to get a match against her. Somehow, Cardi B got the opportunity to be the one to break the news that SummerSlam will be going to 2 nights next August in New York at MetLife Stadium. And I guess I'd say that that is not occur? No, well, regardless, what is okay is that Jade and Bianca will be the host for Bad Blood next weekend, even though it would still be better if they had a championship match. And lastly, we had a vignette saying that AJ Styles will return to SmackDown next week, and since he has a 1-6 record in one-on-one matches this year, perhaps this will be his return to announce a retirement for good this time. And with that, let's go to STFs. And in this week's suspensions, terminations, and fines, it was a surprisingly light night with the bloodline around, but we'll still start with them, even though when Tonga and Loa came out to distract Kevin Owens, it was Cody Rhodes who actually initiated the fighting, as Tonga and Loa did not make any contact with anyone, so Cody Rhodes will pick up a fine. But the match ended after Jacob Fatu threw Rhodes into the feet of the referee, so for intentionally contacting a ref, he's going to get a 2-week suspension. And the only other thing we had was that Carmelo Hayes blindsided LA Knight backstage as he was talking to Andrade before Hayes and Andrade squared off, so Hayes will get a 1-week suspension. It may not have been bad blood, but the blood was boiling between besties as Bayley defeated Naomi to become the #1 contender to face Nia, who choked her bestie, Tiffy Stratton, and Kevin Owens could not get on the same page with Cody Rhodes. And of course, Andrade and Carmelo Hayes now have a series tied at 3 after Hayes picked up the win. I'm Dr. O'Kay reporting on the WWE, where everything is okay.